Test, 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 test. There we go. Yeah, all right, give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna mute you. Can you still hear me?
Yo,
What's up? I've us muted right now just because it can hear us. I don't know how to, I guess I could do it in the software. Um, yeah, no, McNeese is definitely a soccer play. I agree.
yeah, I think dude, I sent a text to Addison on like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I said, "Listen, dude, ready for this? Because we had both been cold. Nobody could hit any bets. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna hit every first half under the Big East tournament. We almost did. I told him, I said, we're gonna bet on Sanford in the first round, and we're gonna fade all the suckers who started watching basketball last week on the
Oh
ice.
yeah.
So we're gonna do it."
Here, one
I have the
second.
text. I sent it to you guys. Sent it to him on like the last day of February or the first day of March. And I was like, here's how we're gonna get it. Here's how we're gonna beat the book. But yeah, dude, the suckers are on McNeese. They're not big. Graham Ike, I wanted to. You see the side of having the Graham Ike like going off last 10 games. Um. So
I'm listening. I'm also just trying to figure something out real quick.
what do you mean if you hear us? Why am I muted?
I can still hear you on the stream. even though you're muted. I don't really understand this.
You want me to mute myself?
No, I muted you. What the fuck? This is so weird. Let me try. This is very strange. I'm hanging up. All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome officially to Brackets Eve, presented by the Big Five Pod. I am, of course, your co-host, Kyle Morello, and with me, the one and only Jake Copestick. Cope, we're ready to break down the bracket. The day is finally here. How goes it, my friend? We'll try this again. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Big Five Pod, presenting Brackets Eve. We are officially going over our March Madness brackets the night before the tournament. We are so excited to bring you this live show. It's so great to be here. Cope, of course, I'm Kyle Morello. We have Jake Copesick next to me, as you guys know. But if you're unfamiliar, we are the host of the Big Five Pod. Cope, the bracket is finally here. How does it feel? You can't hear me? Ruh-roh. Can you can't hear me? Stand by, folks. Can you hear me now? Okay, we'll start. Dude, we'll start again. All right, people. Now we are live officially. Had a little mic problem. It's okay. We're only in the second minute here, so we're getting started. But welcome to Brackets Eve, presented by the Big Five Pod. We are so excited to go over this bracket with you. I am, of course, your co-host Kyle Morello. With me is my other co-host, Jake Copestick. Cope, it's finally here. This is the moment we've been waiting for. We are so very excited to help you pick out your bracket today. But Cope, first and foremost, how are you?
It's kind of hard to be doing any better if you're me, Kyle. I got the Montana State Grambling game on in front of me. We're gonna have wall-to-wall basketball the next couple days. Very few things better than the next 2 days, and very few things and very few days better. If you're myself, so I'm fantastic right now. Let's talk some brackets. Let's talk some hoops. I mean, it's the best time of the year for it.
It is the best time of year. No question about that. All right, Cope. We're going to start with just, overall our opinions on what happened on Selection Sunday. Obviously, we have not recorded an episode of the Big Five Pod since conference tournaments ended, so a lot of crazy things happened. First of all, Temple Owls. I mean, we're not going to talk about them really right now. They're not in the tournament, but how about that run that they were on? Definitely want to give them a shout out real quick. But looking at this bracket, I mean, there was a lot of controversy around the bubble because you had so many bid stealers this year. I think a lot more than normal. I think that's definitely safe to say. And it pushed some teams further down the bubble, and some teams that everyone thought would get in, maybe would even be safe, like very safe in the field, didn't get in, like Oklahoma, like Indiana State, who ended up losing their conference tournament to Drake, Seton Hall, St. John's. But controversially, Virginia was let in. And obviously, last night we saw that maybe they weren't all that deserving. So real quick before we get into our actual picks and everything, what do you think happened on Selection Sunday with the committee? Why? I mean, I know that bid Steelers had to push down some people on the bubble, but why do they choose out of all teams to let Virginia in? And there were some seeding mishaps too, maybe in that first four.
Yeah, the whole Virginia thing, I'm really not sure what happened here. Their resume was not good. They were getting they got pummeled by Virginia Tech. They got blown out at Duke. And it's okay. It's one thing to lose at these places, Kyle. It's another to get smoked and not put up 50 points. Like they looked helpless on offense really the last month and a half, 2 months, and for a majority of the season. So they get let in. I know it's the Virginia style of basketball. It's the pack line defense. Make you take jump shots, stifle your offense, make you take bad shots, and win some ugly games. But this offense this year for them has been horrific. I mean, they have nobody besides Reese Beekman that can create off the dribble. I mean, Isaac McNeely and Jacob Groves couldn't find an open look last night. Like, they don't have anyone on offense. Like, you have to score points. Not hard. They don't have really anyone that can score points outside of Reese Beekman for himself. They don't really have guys that can dribble and get all the way to the basket, that can create even space for themselves, Kyle. I mean, they really couldn't even get some open looks at times when they had to drive the ball in Colorado State. So I don't know what happened there. That's definitely not going to happen again, for Virginia's sake. I mean, unfortunately for them, like that's not going to happen. Like if they go in the next year or two, if this happens again, where they're on the bubble, unfortunately, I think this is going to not look good for them. But I don't know. The resume really wasn't great. Seton Hall should have been in. St. John's, the way they've been playing, should have been in. If you just use your eye test a little bit here, you take away the analytics we love to obsess over. Virginia, you could tell over the last month that's not a team that should have been in the tournament.
No.
Seton Hall, St. John's, pretty dangerous, pretty scary to somebody. They definitely should have been in. But at the same time, I can't really think of another year like this, Kyle, where you had this many bid stealers last minute that you had to throw out whatever tentative bracket you had because you had to make space for an NC State, for Oregon, for New Mexico, for Duquesne. Last minute, you have to make space for four new teams that ultimately that last four That first 4 out: Seton Hall, Oklahoma, Indiana State. I think Pittsburgh was the other one. Those 4 teams any other year get in. Just happened to be a wild Saturday and a really wild weekend that sent those teams out.
Yeah, it really, really was. And as much as I do want to talk about what happened in those conference tournaments, because I don't think what people fail to realize sometimes is conference tournaments are part of March Madness, and everyone, goes to the tournament, and the tournament's branded as March Madness as it should be, but the conference tournaments are right up there with it. As much as I do want to talk about those, Cope, we have a bracket to break down. I'm not going to show my filled out bracket, but we have, look at this beautiful thing. It is a blank new bracket that is yet to be untouched with any games. And we're going to go over that right now for you. So, Cope, we're going to go region by region here. We're going to break down the first round first, and then we're going to have some guests on to help us out with those things. So why don't we get right into it? First thing I want to do is talk about the East region, because UConn was granted the #1 seed, overall seed in the tournament, and that's going to be played. The regional will be played in Boston, so it's a home game for them. And they were obviously placed in Brooklyn for the first 2 games as well. So they are not going to have to travel ever, which is good for them. But man, this bracket is hard for them. They did no favors for UConn. So let's go over this. The 8-9 matchup, FAU and Northwestern. You have San Diego State, who made a Final Four national championship last year against those UConn Huskies, playing UAB, who of course beat Temple. Auburn is the 4 seed, who won the SEC, facing Yale, who won a last-second shot over Brown in the Ivy League championship. BYU and Duquesne is 6-11 in that region. The Big Ten champs, Illinois, are facing a feisty Morehead State team. You got Washington State and Drake, the winners of the Arch Madness, and of course also playing in Omaha, Iowa State and South Dakota State. Iowa State, of course, just coming off the Big 12 championship. So you had all these championship winners, experienced teams. You want to talk about FAU team that was in the Final Four last year, a Northwestern team that's got some good guard play, Bowie, UAB team that just beat Temple as an athletic team, Yale, who's always, when they are in the tournament, they usually show up. This region is stacked, Cope. So let's go a little bit first round matchup. Obviously, we know the facts that it's only been 2 16 seeds that have beat a 1 seed. So if you are at home and you're thinking about picking a 16 over 1 seed, because it's happened now a few times recently, or a couple times recently, I'm just going to tell you right now, don't do it. Not worth it. Don't do it. It doesn't happen. It's happened twice in the history of the NCAA tournament since seeding expanded. I believe it was 1985. It was the first year that there were 64 teams in the tournament. Don't do it. Not worth it. But there's other things to get into as well. This 8-9 matchup, particularly with FAU and Northwestern, is interesting because you have a team in FAU that really good offense, experienced team from last year, against the Northwestern team that, I don't really trust Big Ten teams in the tournament all that much. But it's an intriguing matchup. Personally, I have FAU winning this one, and I'm going to get into something with that in a second, why I'm keen on this matchup. But Cope, what do you like in this 8-9 matchup? Because those are the hardest ones to pick usually.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of judge myself on how well my bracket does if I can nail the 8-9 games, because all of them are coin flips. They're all toss-ups. I mean, hence why they're the 2 closest seeded games here. I kind of wrestled back and forth a little bit. I did end up going with Florida Atlantic. And how funny is this, Kyle? You mentioned all the tournament winners, but how about you 3 of the 4 of last season's Final Four teams
in the same region?
In the same region with Florida Atlantic, San Diego State, UConn. So pretty funny on that end. But I am going to roll with FAU here. Ty Berry, Nicholson for Northwestern. They've had some injury things going on here. Mike and Matthew Nicholson. Sorry, I almost said Andrew Nicholson used to play for Bonaventure, got drafted, yes. But him with some size being out, and then Ty Berry coming off the bench being out. There's been some injury trouble here with Northwestern, and although I really like what they do, I think Chris Collins is phenomenal, and Boo Boo, he's going to get his. He's a total bucket getter. I do think FAU might have one last run on them here to at least win this game. With Golden inside, and we know how well John L. Davis and Elijah Martin can score. I do think they can win this one. They don't really force turnovers a ton, which you don't like to see. For a team that can make it deeper on the tournament, but I don't think either of these teams are going to beat UConn. Hence, I don't think this game is a giant deal. But I went back and forth, but I'm going to take FAU, although it's not been, they really had some unfair expectations placed on them early in the season to be a preseason top 10. They had, the most minutes continuity from last year. They had a lot on their plate. They did. They had a lot of expectations. The fact they even got an at-large Kyle is still a huge win in their book. Shows you how good that they were, even though they beat Arizona and they had a slew of bad losses. They're still here. So I'm going to take Florida Atlantic. I went back and forth. These games are always close, and I believe this one will be as well. Will be no different. But I'm going to go with the Owls.
Yeah, I am as well, Cope. I just, I trust their experience. The offense, I think, is going to show up. The defense is suspect, to say the least. But I do trust it. I think that's what's going to end up happening here. I'll get back to that in a second, though. I want to get to my probably, I don't know about favorite upset pick, but my biggest upset pick of this bracket, the entire bracket, not just the East region. But I want to see if you agree with this, or maybe if you have a pick, too, that you want to give out in a different region. Because we're going to go through some upset picks as well here. First one I'm giving you guys. You got to trust me on this one. It's very much a risk, but I'm going to tell you why. I've got Morehead State beating the Big Ten champs in Illinois. And here's why I have that, Cope. Number one, like I said, don't trust Big Ten teams. Not that I think that every Big Ten team will be eliminated in the first round. I think that's a little bit unrealistic. But I've been a little bit more sour on Illinois this year than most people have. Really good offense. Terrence Shannon Jr., though, not a good person. If you want to read into that, you read into that. I just had to preface that. Great score, not a good person. I think, and I've been reading different articles and stuff and seeing different stuff on Twitter, so I don't want to take credit for being the one to present this information. I believe it was Ryan Hammer was one of them, Evan Mia, Andrew Weatherman, all great follows on Twitter if you want to follow those analytic guys. But Morehead State is a team that shoots a lot of threes. They have a pretty decent offense. They can get up and down a little bit on offense, but they play at a slow pace. And Illinois is a very, very fast-paced team on both sides of the ball. I think that with a little bit of a three-point discrepancy, Illinois isn't always great at stopping the three. Morehead State shoots at a decent rate. I think that's a recipe for success as an upset bid in March Madness. So I'm going to go with Morehead State here. I think that's a pretty... It's questionable, but I think people are saying, from what I've seen online, that if there was a 14 seed that was going to do it, I think it's going to be Morehead State, and I think I'm going to agree with that. So at least in the East region. Now, Cope, I know you have a couple upset plays as well. I definitely want you to get out one right now. It doesn't have to be in the East region. We just started there because the first one I'm seeing, obviously, it's a packed region. We have to talk about it. But let me know one of your biggest upset plays here so that people can maybe get insight. Because upsets are important. You can't go through March just picking chalk. It's not what happens. It's very unrealistic.
Yeah, I mean it's no fun if you're just gonna pick chalk. So I have a couple. I have one in the East region that it's starting to grow on me a little bit, and I'll use this before I'll use my next one, and then we have the full court press guys coming in to talk some Mountain West and to definitely talk some upsets.
Oh yeah.
I like Duquesne. Duquesne's starting to grow on me a little bit, Kyle. I saw them play pretty well in the A10 tournament. I did not make the championship game because me and you decided to come back to Philadelphia and potentially plan for Temple winning the AC so we could watch that. But Duquesne's starting to grow on me a little bit, Kyle. And here's the thing, like Duquesne, they'll slow you down. They play good defense. So I like when you get kind of a clash of styles where it's like a slow versus go. But BYU defensively, not really been all that great this year at times. Really good offensive team. Just defensively hasn't been there entirely for them. So like when I see that, to me, I think that Duquesne, even if it's an ugly game like they had again in the championship, like they had against VCU, like I do think that Duquesne can actually slow them down a little bit here for a team in BYU that plays top 100 in tempo, top 60 in average possession, like offensively, Kyle. The defense, they're deep. This is a pretty hard team to prepare for as well with how many guys they're going to play. And then two really good scoring guards in Jimmy Clark III and Day Grant. Like they can slow you down, a good defense, and two guys that you can score. And Jimmy Clark did not have a good game Sunday against VCU. I don't believe that's going to happen again. Like I think Duquesne actually could be a nice pick here to upset BYU.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely possible. I have BYU in this. I just think their three-point shooting is really, really good. And well, not that it's insane, but they take a lot of threes, and I think Duquesne might have a little bit of trouble defending that. It'll definitely be a really interesting matchup. I also like this is something that I saw online too, and I would assume it's probably true, but Mormons typically don't like to. I think it's something in the religion where like they can't do things on Sunday, and I think that they gave BYU the 6th seed and Duquesne the 11th seed when it should have been probably 5-12 because they wanted to accommodate them, which is fair, and I respect the hell out of that. So I think that's part of it. I think this really should be a 5-12, not a 6-11. And I could see Duquesne with the scoring getting there. I think I'm going to go with BYU in this one. All right, Cope. We're going to talk more upsets. We're going to talk more Mountain West. We're going to do all that stuff right now because we are going to bring in Luke Taylor from the Full Court Press podcast. And he's joining us now live. Luke, I'm going to unmute you. How's it going? Oh, yeah. You don't like my pick. Okay. That's where we'll Cope's picking Duquesne, so. Okay. I mean, listen, that's fair. That's fair. Luke, I guess first question off the bat here, since we are talking upsets, do you have a particular upset in the entire tournament that you are keen on and want to share with the people? Okay. Okay. Listen, let's dive into that a little bit because I'm not gonna lie to you, as of one first round matchup that I was absolutely stressing over, and Cope, I texted you this last night as well. It was McNeese State versus Gonzaga. McNeese State is definitely one of those mid-major teams that, well, really low-major team. I mean, they play in a low-major conference that people are really, really high on. They shoot a good three-point percentage. They defend three pretty well. They have a good turnover margin. These are all things that are a recipe for success in March. But they're playing Gonzaga team that I think is a little bit underseeded. His offense has been clicking as in the last 2 months or so, maybe a little less. So personally, I have Gonzaga. Cope, I know you were also debating this, but Luke, I want to hear your thoughts on this too. Why McNeese over a team in Gonzaga that a lot of people think have Final Four upside? Yeah, that is the absolute truth. All right, Cope, I do want to hear your thoughts, but we now have Luke's co-host joining us now, Sam Davidson, of course. I don't listen. Listen, I'm not. That's not for me to decide, but that's just what I'm saying here. I'm not going to keep him on. I can't do that to him. Sam Davidson, how are you? Of course. Thank you for being here. Listen, we are talking McNeese Gonzaga. Luke is picking McNeese in this one. Obviously, one of the more. Well, that's what I was just going to ask. I need your thoughts, Sam, on McNeese Gonzaga. It's definitely one of the most popular 12-5 matchups, not only this year, but I think it's some time too. Wow.
Mm.
Wow. I mean, listen, I want to say that's surprising, but now with this McCullough news for Kansas, Sanford's also a trendy upset pick. Cope, I know we were talking about this ourselves. I know you like Sanford. Between those two teams, though, I mean, if they do end up matching up in the round of 32, who do you like in that one?
So here's the thing. I do have Sanford as the upset. Can I defer your question? Can I speak on why I think Gonzaga wins this game? Because I do think
because I think so too.
McNeese has become like, I think this one's too trendy for me. And the last couple of years, like I've tried to stay away because 2 years ago, when there was that Providence team that just kept winning, they won every close game. I took them against South Dakota State. That was the trendy one. Made me look like a sucker. I didn't want to do that again. And last year was Charleston against San Diego State. San Diego State in the Final Four. Yep. Everybody who started watching basketball last week loaded up on Charleston, and then they ended up losing. But with the record that McNeese has, I think people look at that, or JMU, they see a record like that that's so gaudy and so good. And as good as McNeese has been, they're a small team. They're not very big. Graham Ike been going off the last couple of games. How about this Gonzaga? 8-1 in the last 9 games. The sole loss coming in the West Coast Championship game to St. Mary's. He's averaging 20 points, almost 7 boards in that 9-game stretch. He has been a huge problem. He's been dominating every one-on-one matchup. And then with the shooters that Gonzaga has, you double them. He's able to dish out, and they're able to shoot threes. Also, the fact that McNeese likes to play fast. Gonzaga always been a good transition team. That might not be what you want to do, is get into a track meet with a transition team that the shooters can run to the wing and they can get out like that. Like, you really got to be able to get back on defense and be able to point and pick up guys as they come up the court with how good the Zags are transition offense-wise. So couple all that together, and look, Shahade Wells is a really good player. I've been watching him since he was at UT Arlington before he was at TCU, because UT Arlington had a game where actually Oklahoma State and Cade Cunningham came into UT Arlington to play, and I'm watching this guy. I know UT Arlington's probably a bunch of nobodies to a lot of people, but like this dude's getting buckets, and that game was pretty close. But transfers to TCU, has some injury trouble the first year. Last year, he had a really good game at Fog Allen Fieldhouse when TCU went in there and won. But it almost like his as good as he is, it almost reminds me of a situation where like people are falling in love with him, much like they fell in love with Jelly Walker a couple years ago. Jelly Walker was a really good player at UAB when he was down a level, but when he was at Tulane, he was not as dynamic a scorer as he was in putting up those numbers in a better conference than when he was at UAB. So I look at Shahade Wells. His best seasons was when he was transferring down. He had more of an offensive load to carry, and he was given more freedom to shoot the ball at a smaller conference, or if for a team at a smaller conference. So to have to step up, and now it's like, okay, he's been a guy that comes off the bench at a Big 12 school, and now he's like the leading guy at a smaller conference school. Like, I see that, but like when you see his numbers, like he was not doing that last year at TCU. So as good of a player he is, like he's not some dynamic Big 12 like Power 5 scorer. So I see all that. They're enamored with the guard that didn't put up the crazy numbers when he was at a bigger conference. They're going to play the pace that Gonzaga wants to play at, especially on offense. And they're just not very big. And Graham Ike's been dominating everybody the last handful of games. So I see all those things, and couple that with I think a lot of people are on McNeese. That makes me want to go the other way with Gonzaga.
Oh, man.
Oh, jeez. And now they're going to end up winning because I'm giving them fuel to the fire now.
Yeah. All right, well, let's dive into that, though. I mean, if Creighton's definitely a popular Final Four pick. I mean, that region in the Midwest with Purdue in it, Purdue obviously has had their troubles in recent years getting anywhere in the tournament. I mean, at least past the Sweet 16, the one year when they lost to St. Peter's. But they're playing an Akron team that miraculously, somehow, some way, ended up winning that game. And getting to the NCAA tournament. And I don't think people are talking about them a lot. I personally have Creighton. I don't know if Akron can keep up with just all the people that Creighton have. Baylor Shireman, I mean, Trey Alexander, Ryan Kalkbrenner. I mean, they have talent on that team. And a team that was a possession away from the Final Four last year. So returning a lot of the same people. it's going to be tough for Akron, but tell me, guys, why do you like Akron in this one? Okay. Yeah. Listen, that's what it seems like. I'll tell you that much. It's definitely going to be. There's so many interesting like upset picks. I mean, we were talking about obviously McNeese State and Akron, or McNeese State and Gonzaga. We talking about Akron and Creighton. Another one I really like, and I'm not going to go as far as to say that this is an upset due to the fact that they're favored in the game. But a lot of people love the Lobos of New Mexico. Personally, I do too. I have them going to the Elite Eight, actually. I have them beating Arizona in the Sweet 16. It might be a little bit of a bold take. So, guys, tell me, am I wrong for loving this New Mexico team the way I do?
Yeah, I mean, now we're getting into Mountain West talk, and I'm out in northern Colorado, so I get a lot of this out here. And with the seedings that the Mountain West teams received were a little slighted from what everybody thought they were going to be. I actually thought New Mexico was going to get in regardless if they won the tournament or not. I mean, I think Richard Pitino's a great coach. I think what they did was really good. Clearly, that wasn't the case. They were not going to get in if they didn't win the tournament. But I'm on board with, I'm on board with them beating Clemson the first round. I have Baylor knocking them out the second round. So I'm not buying them getting that far. I do think it's going to be a really close game against Clemson. I mean, I think that this time of year, and I mean, you guys watch just as much as anybody, it's, like what time of year are these teams peaking, right? And New Mexico is peaking right now. So could they go a long ways? I do. Looking right below them, like LT said, I really like Nevada. I have Nevada taking down Arizona in the second round. Nevada's also playing the best ball that they've played all year. They lost to Colorado State in the semis of Mountain West Conference play. And we actually had Jared Lucas on Monday or Sunday night after the bracket came out. And he let us, he's like 6 of the guys had the flu that day. Wow. So, and before that, I was like, this is one of the hottest teams in the country, right? I think they were on like a 5 or 6 game win streak, like just knocking down teams like they beat Boise State on Boise State senior night by like 10 or 11, right? So it's like, I mean, they are.
It's a tough one. They do. And listen, like a lot of teams that are in New Mexico's position, a lot of times in the NCAA tournament, they'll have one guard who they can rely on and carry them. And obviously, people talk about guard playing the tournament and how important it is. They have three key pieces that they can rely on, which a lot of teams that fit their profile don't normally have. I think it's a recipe for success. I think if they end up going against UNC in the Elite Eight, which I have, I don't think they'll get past North Carolina. I think that defense is pretty good. They play not as fast of a pace, but they play fast enough where they can match them. And in those matchups, I usually like the better team. Although Arizona also does too, but they turn the ball over a lot. UNC doesn't. So I like that. Cope, I know you're also pretty high on the Lobos too.
What do you think of their chances in the tournament here?
Yeah, I definitely think they'll beat Clemson. I like their makeup, like Luke said. I mean, there's not many teams that possess the three guards that they have that really can get a bucket for you and score at will, like any of them can. House is a bull on the ball. Can shoot a little bit, can get inside into the paint. Like Donovan Dent's great getting to the basket. And then I love guys that shoot well in the mid range, and you're not going to find many guys that shoot well in the mid range like Jamal Mashburn Jr., one of the best in the entire country. That pull up jumper inside the 3-point line. So when you have guards like that, and then JT Toppin being a young guy, like he can rebound, and then I've been a fan of Nelly Jr. Joseph since he's been at playing for Rick Pitino at Iona. I think he was a huge pickup to get this year. As a guy inside that can rebound, that can score, and can block some shots. Like I really like the makeup of their team. And like Sam said, like they truly are peaking it at the right time. So I like them to beat Clemson. I'm a huge fan of this Baylor team. I think that'll be a really, really good game. But I do think that the three guards of New Mexico will at least give them a shot to definitely make the round of 32.
Yeah, definitely.
I would hope so, yeah. I mean, with all their troubles that they've had, like, really breaking through last year with San Diego State, like that success, like, really wasn't there. Something I want to ask you guys about Mountain West. Boise State, they have a win over St. Mary's in the non-conference. Pretty solid non-conference play. Not horrible, but they have pretty solid wins there. They win at Nevada. They were the only team to win at – they swept San Diego State. They won at Nevada, correct? They won – in Reno. I think they were the only team that won there. Like they had a pretty good, really good conference slate here. Being the only team to win at Viejas Arena was a really, really hard place to play. How did this team end up in the first four? I didn't see a single reason why that could be a thing.
The same can be said for Colorado too. I mean, they're playing Colorado first round. And I mean, Sam and I know, we saw them firsthand. We interviewed them. I mean, Colorado could be a Sweet 16 team. I mean, it's crazy.
With two lottery, or two draft picks as well. With two
draft, two first round picks.
For, really good team.
I mean, it's like so. I mean, Boise State, I was shocked. In all honesty, I watched. I like watching the game. Those guys play. I watch how they spread the floor. I mean, they typically always have four guys on the court who can shoot the three. They're well coached, very mature team, older team, physical when they need to be physical. And, I think most people had them at like a 7 or 8 seed, right? And, for them to be a 10 seed after playing the play-in game, like that's probably the biggest headline that I'm seeing out here, like in Mountain West country is, everybody kind of knew Colorado State had some off weeks and some streaky play towards the end of the season and whatnot. Everyone was just shocked when Boise State, got that line item to have to go to Dayton.
Yeah,
it made no sense. I mean, Cope and I were watching this live show together, and every mountain team except for San Diego State got underseeded, in our opinion. It's egregious. Do you think something, and this is like the one thing I've seen online, though, about why, really? Do you think, other than a general lack of tournament success, which I don't think should be a reason, but do you think it's because of the elevation factor and the fact that a lot of those teams do play at elevation? And now in this tournament, obviously Salt Lake's a site, but generally there is none of that.
No, I think a lot of it has to be they're not a Power 6 conference. I think that's the biggest problem. And I mean, you saw Tom Izzo's comments today about how the mid-major conferences should be re-looked at, their bids. There's the haves and the have-nots. And Sam and I know because we were talking to Jared Lucas again, and he was saying that Coach Alford was reaching out to Coach Rice, Coach Ducher, Coach Medved, and I think he didn't say Coach Pino about this whole seeding. I mean, they got San Diego State's a 6 seed, I think, and then you have a 5,
Okay. And then you have a 10 and 11 seeds. I mean, that's,
yeah.
I mean, it's not, I mean, it's a joke. And I mean, these teams, and the problem is a lot of these Power 6 teams are not scheduling against them, and even the mid majors too. So how can you fault them for, what they've kind of gone through?
Yeah, I mean, I think I actually haven't heard that argument about the elevation. I like it because it's one of the ones that has maybe 10% of
intelligence. Sam, ask Dane what they think about the elevation when they get run out of the gym by Nevada.
I know. I can't think of any reason. I mean, I think that there's a pretty big East Coast bias when it comes to college basketball and the media and all that. I think that has a lot to do with it. Mountain West is clearly the best conference in the West Coast this year. I mean, they were 6-1 against the Pac-12, 18-6 against the West Coast Conference. This is the third year in a row they have at least 4 teams in the tournament. So I mean, they're continuing to build, right? And I can't think of any, like you said. I mean, San Diego State's the only one that actually had a seating where we were like, okay, that sounds about right. Everybody else, I mean, whether I don't know what rankings you guys look at, but you look at the net rankings and you do have like San Diego State at 20, New Mexico 22, Boise State 26, Nevada 34, Colorado State 36, and Utah State at 38. But Utah State won the regular season conference there, right? And so it's like it's mind-boggling to me, like how the selection committee. There's definitely an East Coast bias, and I think a lot of it has to do with the media rights and what people are looking at. But I think we're giving the selection committee a little too much credit if they're taking elevation into accountability.
Here's the thing: you ever thought that after Golden Girls ends at 10 o'clock, they go to bed and they can't watch the Mountain West games because they're pretty late at night?
True.
Yeah, we talk. I mean, Tad Boyle, the head coach at Colorado. I mean, when we were talking to him, that's what he said. He's like, a lot of the East Coast people on the selection committee, like who have it, and as well as the East Coast media, like he's like, Tad will text him and be like, "Oh, did you guys catch the game?" And they're like, "No." Like we'll try to watch a recording of it. And it's like, and he said that hurts like his players as well. I mean, as far as like with KJ Simpson and Cody and all those guys. But it's yeah, I mean, college basketball is an East Coast sport. Like, I'm not going to deny that at all. And I think that there's a little bit of bias there for sure.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys one more thing before we let you go here. You can follow Luke and Sam at the Full Court Press Podcast on not only Twitter, but Instagram as well. Before we let you guys go, can we get your Final Four predictions?
Yep.
The CBI or the NCAA?
How about the NIT?
About the NIT?
Yeah, the one you don't have. Yeah, the one that you, the one that all the Power 5 schools can't just turn down.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I got UConn playing North Carolina. I've got Kentucky playing Tennessee, and then I have UConn over Kentucky in the final.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to copy him because I don't do too well in these picks.
Oh man.
You saw Kentucky in the flesh today, LT, and you were like, these guys.
You want to talk about the Beatles revisited and relived. I mean, it's man, I got to go they actually open up the locker room, and it's just a frenzy. But I'm going to go UConn's going to win it all. I think UConn has been there, done that. They play within a system. Coach Hurley is a phenomenal coach. I'm going to go I'm going with North Carolina. I really like that one. Tennessee, I struggle between Tennessee and Purdue because if Zach Edey's on, and even if they stop him, if they can hit their threes, they're just a different team.
I've been trying to bet people on Instagram and Twitter that Purdue won't make to the Final Four, and everybody's just I'm just like, I can't buy it.
I'm sold on Kentucky. I mean, I was at the locker room, and I've never been a big Kentucky fan, but I watched them practice, And I mean, they have like 11 or 12 studs. I mean, they're just absolutely different. And if all those cylinders are firing, I don't know who can beat them. The problem is they haven't got there yet. Now, Coach Cal knows how, is a mastermind when it comes to this time of year. And they just gotta win a handful of games and they can win it all. So but I think UConn's just too good. I think UConn's just a different level.
That is a case I will not argue with. We're not going to reveal our picks yet. We got about 50 minutes left here this show, so we're not going to reveal our picks just yet. But they will be on Twitter, of course. Listen, the one thing I think with Kentucky, obviously they have the offensive firepower. I think arguably the best offensive firepower in the country. I think there's no arguing there. Just the defense really, really concerns me because they just time in and time out just do not defend when they should. And they should be winning a lot of these games because they can score with anybody, but they just can't simply stop a nosebleed.
Yeah, but it's 4 games, 3 games, 2 games. You know what I mean? You go on your little run, and it's hard for me to pick UConn because my guy is Donnie Jones. I love Stetson. I love Stetson. That's my guy right there. It's not Sam's guy. It's my guy.
Gotcha.
But no, I think UConn's just too good.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue.
Look forward to seeing your guys' picks, though, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very much appreciate it. And we very much appreciate you two coming on, spending some time with us on this Brackets Eve, our first ever rendition of this. Listen, if you guys want more, go to the Full Court Press podcast. Listen to these two talk all college basketball things throughout the year, not just during November through March or April, rather, but throughout the offseason as well. Sam, Luke, thank you guys so much for coming on. We very much appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Good luck. Yep, thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
it.
Thank you, guys.
Alrighty, that was Sam and Luke from the Full Court Press podcast. Definitely want to shout them out for coming on. We very much appreciate it. Great stuff there. Great insight from them. We're going to get into our picks, of course. Continue to get into our picks. But UConn, man, you want to talk about a team that does not really have a whole lot of holes in that team. They really, really are just a whole, complete team. So I want to know, I mean, this East region, I know we've been talking about it. We're going to get into some other stuff too, but are you picking UConn to – you don't have to spoil your Final Four picks yet, but we've been talking about it, we've been debating it, and it's hard to pick a team over UConn.
Yeah, just watching. I've watched them on TV a bunch, but then finally being able to see them in person at the Big East tournament. My thing, and I've said this to you, in that, can you win multiple ways? They scored 95 and they beat St. John's. If you would have said to Rick Pitino, hey, you're going to score 90 on UConn, he probably would have said, how much did we win by? They scored 95 on St. John's, won a high-scoring game, and then they win, I think it was 73-57 against Marquette, when Marquette just kind of ran out of gas. They didn't have Kolek, which is huge for them, and I think Marquette's going to make a deep run in this tournament. But UConn and Marquette start that game out. I think they each had 2 points with 11 minutes left. The first 9 minutes of that game, there was 4-6 points, something. There's only a couple made baskets. They can win an ugly one where they have to defend and they're not making shots, but they can also hit shots with the best of them. Klingon is dominant inside. Tristan Newton has played his way onto NBA radars. Cam Spencer's a total knockdown shooter. Caravan is great and can stretch the floor. There's so many good players on this team. And then how about Jalen Stewart giving some really good minutes during the Big East tournament? Hassan Diarra was good, coming off the bench, playing defense, being able to shoot a little bit. They are so good. Samson Johnson can step in for Klingon. This team is so good, Kyle. I just want to I'm trying not to get cute. That's your first instinct is I'm taking too much chalk. I got to switch it up a little bit, but I'm going to trust my eyes here, Kyle. I'm going to take UConn, plus the fact that they have 2 games in Brooklyn if they win those. And then if they advance to the second weekend, they have 2 games in Boston, about an hour and a half from Stores. They're going to be playing 4 home games. I'm going to trust my eyes here. I'm going to take UConn, and I'm going to kind of set it and forget it. I'm not going to take anybody else and overthink this.
And I'm not going to blame you. I mean, I don't want you to give away your championships, your Final Four. I know we're just talking about potential in the East region as a whole right now.
But yeah, I mean, the UConn team's really freaking good. They are really, really, really good. All right, Cope, listen, we just had a couple guests on, and now we are about to have another guest on. I am actually loading up his camera as we speak. I might have spoken a little too soon because I didn't have that just quite ready yet, but I'm getting it ready right now. And Cope, I'm going to actually let you do the honors of introducing this next guest. Would you like to do the honors, Cope?
I would love to. Tristan Freeman joins us at HoopsNut351 on Twitter from Busting Brackets. He joins us now, your resident Pittsburgh. He's a college basketball expert everywhere, but especially in the city of Pittsburgh, where he'll be covering the regional there this weekend. Tristan, what's up? How are you?
Oh, Tristan, I don't know if we can hear you. We're gonna work on this. We are gonna work on this. Okay. Tristan, can you hear us? Yes, you can hear us. Okay. Well, that's a good start. It looks like no. Listen, it looks like everything's good. I don't know. Are you muted at all? Are you? Not that doesn't look like anything's off on my end. No, not getting any levels on my end here. Do you want to hang up and try again? All right. We'll do that.
Tristan.
All right. We'll get Tristan in here momentarily.
We'll get him loaded up. He's a Pittsburgh guy. As soon as he gets back in, Kyle, I'm asking him about Duquesne because he's covered Duquesne quite a bit this year. And I hope he agrees with me. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, you got to talk about Duquesne. And listen, we had the pleasure of covering Duquesne on the Big 5 pod because they played not only one Big 5 team, they played two Big 5 teams in the Atlantic 10. And Cope, it's funny, we were talking about this this past weekend when they won, but we were a year early on Duquesne. We picked Duquesne to win the Atlantic 10 tournament last year. I think they finished as the 5th seed in the Atlantic 10 last year. And, at least from like a value standpoint, it seemed like they were a little bit of an undervalued team going to that Atlantic 10 tournament. And I was like, listen, people, I'm telling you, you might want to watch out for Duquesne. I think they might have lost in the quarterfinals.
They lost to LaSalle in the first round.
I think first round. I was about to say, I think that's what it was. I think that.
We got you.
I can hear you now. Yes.
We got you.
That always turns itself off. So.
No worries, Tristan. How are you doing?
Good. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Of course. All right. Well, as our native Pittsburgh resident here, we of course have to ask you about Duquesne. We were just talking about them. On our podcast last year, we were talking about how we were a year early on them. We picked them to win, or at least I picked them to win the A10 tournament last year. Did not go so well, as you might remember. This year, however, definitely did go that well. So now they're in the NCAA tournament. They're playing a BYU team. Started off the year extremely hot, kind of fell off a little bit toward the end, but still a dangerous team going into the first round here. So what are your thoughts on this matchup between Duquesne and BYU?
Yeah, it's strength on strength because Duquesne's biggest strength has been their perimeter defense. They first in the A10 in 3-point defense, only allowing 5 makes a game, under 30% shooting. Shut down Dayton in the tournament. Shut down VCU. They've been fantastic on that end, and a big part of it has been moving Kareem Rozier to the bench and having Jake DeMichael, who's a 6'4" former walk-on, to sort of give them more size. And that's turned things around for them completely on defensive end. But then BYU, they're only North Florida shoots more threes than them. And we have a team that can deliver.
Oh, I think Tristan might have frozen. Oh, no.
That's all right. We'll get him back.
We'll get him back.
He was bringing up a good point, though. Jake DeMichael, former walk-on. Like, how great is that? He steps right into a team that's now playing, in the NCAA tournament. And Kareem Rozier, a small guy, but very quick one at that who can handle the ball a little bit. But, kind of a crazy move But, hey, that's why Keith Damrock gets paid the big bucks. His team's playing the tournament to move Jake DeMichael in there. But also, I wanted to talk about the depth as well. Sorry, Tristan, you froze at North Florida puts up more threes than BYU if you'd like to keep going from there.
Yeah, just that BYU has about 4 or 5 guys that can make 3 or 4 threes a game. Obviously, Jackson Robinson's the big name, but you got Spencer Johnson, Down Hall, plenty of guys that can shoot threes, and you got one of the best bigs in the country, and passing bigs, and Ali Khalifa. He's questionable, but likely will play. So when you got someone like him with 4 shooters around him, it's going to be incredibly difficult to beat. And if you're Duquesne, you can shut down a couple, but you're going to have to honestly find a way to shut down most of them, because if they get their 10, 11 threes a game, knowing that Duquesne isn't the greatest offensive unit, that just might alone be enough to beat them.
Yeah, definitely might be. And listen,
that BYU team, I think they're either first or second. I think they're second. I can fact check that right now, but I think they're second in 3-point attempts for field goal attempps.
On the season.
So they chucked them a lot. I think they're really up there in 3-point scoring
as a whole.
So it's going to be a really tough matchup. I do want to get to your pick, though, for this one. Obviously, you're in the area, you cover Duquesne. What is your pick for this game?
I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I think Duquesne is going to get this to go in their style, and I think that if BYU has a cold stretch, it's going to be hard for them to score in this one. And obviously, with Keith Dambrot retiring, you got 7 true seniors on the roster. Duquesne's going to play with a lot of heart. So I think it's going to be a low scoring game, but in the end, I just think that BYU has just too much size and too much offensive firepower to not find a way to get this one. My prediction for this one was 68-62 BYU.
Okay. So you were in agreement with me,
and Cope is choosing Duquesne in
this one. Any counter argument
to that here?
Well, not really counter argument, but just, Tristan, with you being a guy that covers the team, like I remember I was at the St. Joe's Duquesne game, and I think you were as well, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you asked a question in the presser I thought was interesting. Like, this is a difficult team to have to prepare for with how many guys they're going to be playing. You have the Drames that came over from LaSalle. You mentioned Jake DeMichael, who's been like a great story as a former walk-on, comes in. Like, he played really well in that St. Joe's game and has been able to shoot the ball really well. But not only is the depth like hard for – I want you to speak on the depth of Duquesne, like what makes that so hard to prepare for when you can roll out sometimes 10-plus guys that really nobody does. But – I do think, like, when push comes to shove, Trey Clark is not going to have a bad game like he did Sunday. So not only the depth of this team, but I like, how important is it to have a Day-Day Grant and a Jimmy Clark? Like, I do think having 2 scorers at the end of the game, like, I know those guys are probably going to be able to put up buckets for them, which makes me like them even more. I know they have 2 go-to scores, but the depth and like the clutch scoring of those 2, how do you think that could favor Duquesne in the game here?
Yeah, it's big because in March, it's about guards. And if you don't have good guards that you trust with the ball, you're not going to win. And Day-Day Grant, even though his efficiency hasn't been all the way there in his 5th year, he's still a 40% shooter from deep. And he's someone that can go for 30 on any night. And then, Jimmy Trey Clark, he's so athletic that even if there's no room, he'll find a way to get a layup. And he's always good for clutch shots. And they're both very good defensively. They combined for 8 steals in the time game win over VCU. That's why they were able to win. And look, defense travels in March, depth travels, and Dambrot playing all those guys. The fact that he gave Jake DeMichael and Jakob Netchaz minutes early on, even when they weren't winning, and still kept playing them, it paid off because those were 2 of his 5 best players in Brooklyn, and that's why they were able to win the title, because they got those shots. So even if those two lead guards don't have a great game, if you can get 40 points combined from the rest of the supporting cast, that can be enough to win. And BYU is a team that has a ton of depth as well. They have like 7 or 8 guys that can give you 7 to 10 points a game. So Duquesne's going to have to find some guys off the bench or among the starters that can sort of do the same thing to keep up.
Yeah. I have one more question for him, if you don't mind.
Oh no, we can go for it.
Because Christian, Tristan, you're going to be at the Pittsburgh Regional, bunch of good games there. I know Kentucky's playing there. I believe Creighton is there as well, and then from Creighton and from Akron, like Oregon, South Carolina, going to be up there. So you're going to be watching quite a bit of basketball this week in your hometown. So I want to talk about some of those games. Anything that you pinned? Do you think there's some upsets? Do you like? Talk to me about some of the games you're going to be watching this weekend.
Yeah, it's interesting because I cover RMU as well in the Horizon League. I'm aware of Oakland, and obviously, they're going to have the huge matchup with Kentucky. Trey Townsend's the guy that gets all the attention, but they got two shooters in Jack Golke and Blake Lampkin. They take 23s a game combined between them, and when those guys are making it, then Oakland's incredibly difficult to beat. And Kentucky is literally one of the worst 3-point defenses in the country. They will allow anyone to shoot on them. So that in itself is going to be a really interesting matchup because I think Oakland's going to have opportunities to score a lot of points. And Trey Townsend, he's shown that he can go up against really good bigs on his own. So if he can get his own, then all of a sudden that could be a sneaky upset alert. And by the way, Greg Campy, one of the longest tenured coaches in the sport, he's great at his job. And if Calipari struggles, then that could be an upset alert. And the other game, Creighton and Akron, Enrique Freeman leads the country in rebounds. He's literally a 20 and 12 kind of guy. And if Ali can give them 20 points as well, their supporting cast doesn't necessarily score a lot. They're more of a defensive team. But we've seen Creighton play down the competition. And if they do that again, this could be a very interesting couple of 3-14 matchups in Pittsburgh, where I think certain things will obviously have to happen, but there's going to be upsets somewhere. And I think these are two teams with at least a star power up top that can make it interesting.
All right.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I like the point you bring up with Creighton and Akron, because not only is that going to be Enrique Freeman versus Kalkbrenner, a big battle in the middle, but I watched Creighton a bunch this year, being Big East. Saw them play Villanova, saw them play Providence at the Garden. You were there as well. But the thing with Creighton is they lose to Villanova in December. They shoot 5 of 20 from the 3-point line, and then they beat them at the Wells Fargo Center a couple weeks ago, and they didn't really shoot well from the 3-point line in the totality of the game, but they started out 8 for 11. They just couldn't miss to start, and they had a 24-point cushion that ended up giving them enough of a lead to be able to win that game. So whether it's Akron and then even the winner of the South Carolina-Oregon game, like Creighton, I think could definitely be a team that could fall early just because the 3-point variance is not only so volatile with them, but that's what the outcome of the game is going to be. They're going to win if they make them. They're going to lose if they don't. And they're not a very deep team either, which makes it even more important for the starters with Shireman and Alexander and Ashworth to be able to knock shots down. So, yeah, I feel like Akron's kind of maybe like a sneaky one. I don't think a lot of people are talking about them, but I definitely think you're right. I think Akron can be a sneaky one, even though, they're lucky that they're even here with the guy on Kent State forgetting to score and fouling late in the game. But no, that's going to be an interesting one because I think that's a sneaky one that guys like you that are really in tune to the Horizon League and keep a close eye and the MAC as well. And from that area, I think a lot of people really like Akron in that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, Cope, I was going to say, fast break. Just we were talking about that as well on our last guest that we were just on here. So Akron seemingly picking up to be a popular one here. All right, Tristan, one more question for you, and we're going to let you go. Obviously, for having you on here for Brackets Eve, we got the NCAA Tournament starting tomorrow. Everyone's got to know. Final Four, National Championship picks. Who you got?
Yeah, ironically enough, I feel like the bottom of each of the bracket could be a lot of mayhem because I found myself liking a lot of 10s and 11 seeds. But I think it's going to be fairly chalky up top because I do think the 1 seeds all have a fairly nice path. So I got UConn, UNC, Purdue, and then there's always going to have to be a surprise. I have Florida making it to the Final Four. Ooh. Obviously, the Micah Hanlon injury hurts, but they got the 5th-year senior guards that I like, and Clayton and Pullen. I think they're just so potent that they can beat just about anyone. And look, Marquette, the 2 seed in their bracket, they're vulnerable. Obviously, Tyler Kolek isn't 100%. I think that I think there's potential for them to make a run. And then to win it all, it's starting to feel like UConn might be better than last year's team. And I just think they just don't have any true weaknesses. Like Purdue if you can neutralize Edey enough and you can make those guards beat you, I think, and as those Wisconsin games show, they can lose. North Carolina, we've been seeing them have their flaws. I just think UConn is just top to bottom with the coach, the best team, and I don't see them losing. I think they're going to pull a Florida and get a repeat.
I would not be very surprised if that was the case. I do like your point about Florida, though. I know the injury was a big one for them, but the one site that I've been using, evanmedia.com, he's an analytics guy, very, very good at what he does. So he has these relative rankings, and it's pretty much based off of, obviously, a lot of metrics, but also how well you play against good teams, how bad you play against good teams, and vice versa. And they have Florida as a team that is among the best in the country at stepping up to the competition and playing really well against elite competition. So I would not be surprised, Tristan, if you are correct and that Final Four does feature Florida. Listen, Tristan, thank you so much for coming on. We very, very much appreciate it. If you're in the Pittsburgh area, you follow Duquesne, you follow Robert Morris, even Pittsburgh, all of those teams, make sure you give him a follow. And I'm sure we will be talking to you again because we got two teams in the A10 and you got one that you cover. We're going to cross paths quite a few times. So very much appreciate it. And good luck in your bracket.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me on. Have me on anytime you want.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, Cope. That was Tristan. He was phenomenal. Great insight on Duquesne against their matchup against BYU. A lot of great stuff there. So very much appreciate him being on. Cope, we have our first chat question of the night. All the way an hour into the show, but very excited to answer this one. From the one and only Jeff Maldevier, who we know obviously very, very well. Who do we like, UVM or Duke, kicking off in Brooklyn, 7:10 p.m. on Friday at the Barclays Center. Cope, you were at the Barclays Center. I'm going to give you this one first. I know, or to preface this, people, Jake Kopstick is a massive Duke fan and has been for his entire life. I know, I don't get it either. I don't know. I don't know. But I think I know you're going to pick in this game, and I think I'm going to pick the same thing. But I want to hear from you. UVM or Duke?
Yeah, well, unfortunately for Jeff, I'm gonna take Duke here. I wish I was gonna put a jersey or hat on or something, but I tried to stay as partial as possible. So I figured the all black hoodie was a perfect way to do that and just give partial picks here. But Duke, obviously one of the best bigs in the country in Kyle Filipowski. Don't really know if UVM is going to have too much of an answer for him. Don't think this is like when I look at the last handful of years and then you think of the Duncan triplets that were there and Ryan Davis and Anthony Lamb and Steph Smith. Like, I don't see this as one of Vermont's best teams. They also haven't if John Becker's made 6 of the last 9 tournaments or whatever, they don't have a win. Historically last couple of years, like they can get there. They're almost like Colgate, terrific team in their conference, dynasty and getting there. The tournament success just isn't there. Couple that with the fact you're going up against some guys with a Jeremy Roach who's been to a Final Four. Jared McCain's been really, really good this year scoring the ball. Like, they have some size, the athleticism. They're going to be superior in those areas, being able to rebound, put up points, and ultimately take this one. So I think Vermont hopefully will. They made some games close. They kept it close to Arkansas a couple years ago when Arkansas beat Gonzaga, and then they ended up making the Elite Eight and losing to Duke. So UVM's kept some games close here, but the history of the non-success in the tournament, I don't believe this is one of John Becker's best squads. This Duke team has some guys that can put up some points and can shoot the ball. I'm going to roll with Duke here, although hopefully there's a good contingent of Catamounts fans up in Brooklyn. But unfortunately for them, there's very, very wealthy Duke alum everywhere that will probably also be invading the Barclays Center.
Well, that's the problem with Duke fans, and they're among a contingent of college basketball teams, elite college basketball teams, and elite fan bases that when those teams go to certain arenas, Cope, as we saw 2 years ago when UNC and UCLA and Purdue came to Philadelphia, those ticket prices go way up. And there are definitely going to be contingent of those Duke fans at the Barclays Center. I, of course, am going to be rooting for UVM. I actually will be there, Cope. I will be at the Barclays Center on Friday for that game and for the James Madison, Wisconsin game, which is another one we can definitely talk about. I'm going to go with Duke. We were just talking about those Evan Meyer relative rankings about teams that play well against good teams, play bad against good teams, vice versa, and everything in between. Duke is one of the more consistent teams in college basketball. They haven't really beaten a ton of elite competition. I mean, obviously, we talk about losing twice to North Carolina. They lost to Wake Forest in conference play. They lost to a Pitt team. Both of those teams arguably could have been in the tournament. Wake Forest maybe a little less. But this Duke team's really good. They've got talent. Kyle Filipowski is among the better players in the nation. I'd say probably top 20 or so. I don't know what that list looks like right now, but I think he's definitely up there. They've got some good guard play. It's a good team, and it's going to be a lot for Vermont to overcome. I think they're going to give their best shot. I think John Becker always has his guys ready. They keep things close, but ultimately, unfortunately, Jeff, I am going to go with the Blue Devils. I will be there praying on their downfall. Believe me, it's like the meme where you're showing up to your hater's funeral. I'm hoping I get to do that. No offense, Cope. Actually, like a little bit of offense because I just don't like Duke. And you tried to do that when we went to the North Carolina UCLA game a couple of years ago, and it didn't work. It's unfortunate. But I do think Duke's going to win this one. All right, Cope. We've got about 20 minutes left in this one, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. I know we've been giving people some picks. We've been going over some other things, and definitely very insightful stuff from both you and I, but also our guests, more importantly. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty right now. We talked about a lot of the first round. Before we move on from that, is there any matchup or two that we have not yet talked about that you want to make sure that people know about when filling out their brackets before noon tomorrow?
So, look, I want to touch on the Samford game because with the news that Kevin McCullough is going to be out for the entirety of this tournament, he's not ready to be back from that knee injury he has. And then Hunter Dickinson, somebody asked him at the presser today, how is your shoulder? And he was like, well, it's good enough. It's basically good enough to play. Like, surely people will take that and be very confident in that answer. So The problem with this Kansas team all year is that they're not very deep. They really don't have much of a bench. Nick Timberlake coming over from Towson, I mean, it's a hell of an adjustment to come from the CAA to the Big 12. Marco Jackson, the young freshman, really hasn't come on yet. I mean, it's a lot to play in the Big 12 for Bill Self. Parker Brown, some of these guys, Parker Brown, excuse me. The depth is not there with Kansas. And because of that, one or two key injuries to the starters, you're looking at a whole bunch of different outcomes for them. They could lose. If they're fully healthy, they can make a deep run in this tournament, Kyle. If they're not, which, hey, they're not. Hunter Dickinson's probably not 100%, and you have Kevin McCullough out. I think they can lose this game to Samford. I'm going to pick Samford to upset them here. They play very fast, bucky ball. It's very entertaining. Put up threes. We're going to press, play fast. I like what they have here. It's just a Kansas. You don't really know what you're going to get from them when they're full complement of players here. And because Kevin McCullough's out, I can't really trust them when they're not fully healthy. And really, when they are fully healthy, it's really just DeJuan Harris, KJ Adams, Furphy, Dickinson, McCullough doing a lot of the damage here. So I'm not confident in Kansas with McCullough being out, and I'm going to take Samford to actually pull off an upset here, Kyle.
And that's going to be both of us, Cope. I'm also going to pick Samford here. I was leaning that way anyway, even before McCullough got ruled out. With him being ruled out, Dickinson's injury lingering, I'm not going to say it's a no-brainer because it's never a no-brainer to pick a 13 over a 4. But if you're looking for an upset, I think this is definitely high on the list of ones that you should try to do. Like you said, buckyball is highly entertaining. They get up and down. They shoot threes. They want to get after you. And they shoot pretty successful from the three-point line. So I like buckyball there as well. Cope, if I had to give out one more, and I know we've been giving out stuff, I gave out Morehead State. I gave out New Mexico. We talked about Colorado with the full court press. I think that's a team that could make the Sweet 16. I didn't pick them to beat Marquette, but I was considering it. Cope, obviously we have to talk about the matchup that you high-fived me so hard when I got announced that my hand actually hurt. And listen, I got wrist problems, people. It was with my right wrist. It's the wrist problems. Playing a lot of basketball. But Oregon and South Carolina. Cope, Oregon sneaks into the tournament. They beat Arizona in the Pac-12 semifinals. They then beat Colorado in the Pac-12 finals. They get into the tournament. And Dana Altman has been here before. He's been here before where they've snuck in. They've been a lower seed. They're playing a South Carolina team that, me personally, I have not think they were very good all year. I know they were ranked pretty high at one point. They went on that insane win streak in January, February-ish. I'm not going to say they're a bad team. They definitely deserve to be there. They've had success this year. The SEC is not an easy conference whatsoever. However, when Dana Altman gets into these situations and his team is now fully healthy, a team that was projected to be pretty decent this year, they had a lot of injuries, the most injuries I think by far of any team in the tournament. Now they're here, they're healthy, and I think they're going to beat South Carolina. And I know you think the same, but I do want to hear your breakdown of it. John Rothstein loves to tweet out when Oregon wins that he is Dana Altman. He aligns Rubik's Cubes. Will those Rubik's Cubes be aligned this week?
Kyle, I think they will. And, you know, everything you just said about when he sneaks in the tournament, he did it when he had Peyton Pritchard. They beat Matisse Thybulle and Jalen Noel in the Pac-12 championship game. They get a 12 seed. Who do they play? They play Ethan Happ's Wisconsin Badgers. They beat them. UC Irvine upsets K-State with a sideline Dean Wade to a foot injury. They make the Sweet 16. Like, Altman's got such a good track record. He gets completely underseeded as a 10 seed, by the way, in when they beat Luka Garza's Iowa team. They kind of look. It's unfortunate what happened. VCU, they catch COVID in 2021. Yeah. They're not able to play, so Oregon wins that game due to forfeit. But then they play Iowa, who did not really play much defense. They put up 95 on him and they win. Like, he's got a Final Four.
There was another year. I think it was 2014. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think it was 2014 where they were ranked like kind of late in the season. I think they fell off a little bit. They got a 12 seed and they faced Marcus Smart's Oklahoma State team, and they won. And it was like the most obvious thing in the world. And I think it's the same thing here. I'm going to let you continue, but he's just always in these situations.
Yeah, and look, they just find a way, man. They do. He's not a guy I want to see in the tournament. And you look at South Carolina, not a great three-point shooting team. I feel like Michi Johnson, he can hit some spectacular threes, but his shot selection can be questionable at times. And although South Carolina is a team that plays slow and wants to make this a half-court game, like you have the Ducks that are going to throw some zone defense at you. Like Dana Altman's going to switch the defense that he plays on and is going to throw you off balance a little bit here. And then couple in the fact, like as good as Colin Murray Boyles has been and BJ Mack down low, like in Folly Dante, the last two times they played Colorado, the last week and a half, 2 weeks or so in the last stretch of the season, he hasn't missed. He's 23 at 23 at 24 at 24. He literally hasn't missed a shot. And he was balling out in that Pac-12 championship game. He had a big dunk late. He made some free throws. He had a huge block at the end of the game to really seal that thing for Oregon. Like, and Folly Dante's playing well, and he's finally healthy. That's the thing with Oregon. The last, if they didn't make the tournament this year, that would have been 3 straight years no tournament. They have been ravaged by injuries, losing Jesse Zarzuela from Central Michigan early in the season. Like, they've been ravaged by injuries. They're relatively healthy now, and Folly Dante's back and is a fifth-year guy that's playing with some urgency. And he actually didn't play in 2021 because of a knee injury. And Cliff Omarui, as a smaller guy, was playing center for them and was still producing. But this is a fully healthy Oregon team now, Kyle. And I'm really, really high on the Ducks. And I think, how about this for a storyline? Ready? Jermaine Couisnard, last season, transfers from South Carolina to Oregon. That could be a nice revenge spot for him. And then if we get Creighton and Oregon, round of 32 matchup. Dana Altman was the head coach at Oregon for quite some time, Kyle, and sent a couple guys to the pros. So I think there's a couple interesting matchups for the Ducks here. But Dana Altman, he gets in the tournament. If you're a betting person, against the spread, he's very, very good. I think he's 20-11. He finds a way in these tournament games. So for a team that doesn't shoot well, he'll throw a zone at them. We'll have a pretty slow half-court game. And I think the Ducks, I think they can definitely – I think it's going to be a nail-biter coin flip type thing, even as a 6-11 game. But I think South Carolina may be a little overseeded. Oregon and Dana Altman's Ducks can knock them off here, potentially make a little bit of a run. They're hot. They're healthy. Not a coach you want to see in the tournament, Kyle.
No. And I do agree. I think South Carolina is a little overrated. Or overseeded, rather. I don't think Oregon is technically underseeded because they didn't win the Pac-12 tournament. They weren't getting in the field. their resume just wasn't as good this year because they were not healthy. They were not healthy the entire year. So I don't want to say that Oregon was underseeded, but underrated for sure. They're definitely a team that can make some noise. And I did think about picking them over Creighton. I'm not going to say my decision just yet, but listen, we're only 15 minutes away from the end of this one, Cope. Why don't we get into the Sweet 16 and beyond now? We're getting to the real juicy part of the bracket here. So, Cope, why don't you go down the list? Give me your East region Sweet 16 and why you maybe had some of the matchups that you do.
Well, obviously, I'm going to have UConn there. I don't think that they're going to have any trouble with Northwestern and or FAU, like I had mentioned. So I'm going to go with UConn there. I'm probably going to take Auburn here. As much as I like San Diego State offensively, just not as good. They have the size. Auburn has the size inside with Cardwell, with Janai Broom, who's playing very, very well this year, potentially on the NBA radars, to go up against Jadon Ledee. And although I really like Brian Dutcher, I think he's a coach I can trust more in the tournament. And I like the guards that San Diego State has, just offensively. Besides a Trammell and a Lamont Butler, Reese Waters has been streaky. They have the size to match up with a Ledee. I'm going to roll with Auburn. As much as I love the San Diego State Aztecs. Wouldn't surprise me to see San Diego State beat them, but this Auburn team's hot, and they have defense, they have size to match up with San Diego State.
Yeah.
Going to roll with Illinois here. I think I think Duquesne wins that first game. I don't think they're going to be able to squeak by Illinois with just how good of offensively Illinois is. Not Brad Underwood's best team, but probably his second best team besides that team that got the 1 seed with Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Cockburn and Curbelo. So the offensive Illinois, I think, will keep them there. This Iowa State, Drake, Washington State thing has me. I think Drake, Washington State could be the game of the first round. Yeah. And that's one I keep flip-flopping on, because Drake, Iowa State in Omaha would be dynamite, would be a great game. But Washington State's also very good as well. With that being said, TJ Osselberger is a terrific coach, and this Iowa State team's really good. I think he's almost out for a little bit of revenge with what happened with them last year, where they couldn't make a shot against Pittsburgh. So I think Iowa State beats whichever of those teams, albeit I think if they played Drake, that would be probably one of the best games of this entire tournament. Going to roll with UNC. I think Mississippi State actually wins the first-round game against Michigan State, but I'm going to roll with UNC. I'm trying my best not to pick chalk, but I do think UNC is very, very good. Kyle is absolutely deserving of that last number 1 seed. And then St. Mary's. I'm not a fan of this Alabama team. They don't play defense. They might as well have blindfolds on. They play no defense. They're going to get open shots. I've never been a fan of the Nate Oates way of playing. I think even Charleston could knock them off. It just sucks that Charleston has to play a team that's almost the same as them, just on a high major level. But I really like St. Mary's. St. Mary's, they're better coached. They're going to slow this thing down. They're going to take Alabama out of the rhythm. And think about this, Kyle. When Alabama lost to San Diego State last year, why was that? Because San Diego State grinded the game to a halt, did not let them get out, run, and shoot threes like they want to. They slowed this game down. It's a total contrast in styles. I'd rather take the slow team than the fast team. So I'm going to take St. Mary's to beat Alabama and make the Sweet 16 from there. Baylor, New Mexico is a really, really interesting game. Baylor, I think, can actually make the Final Four. They have a shot out of this bracket region to be able to win here. But I'm gonna take Baylor, as much as I like New Mexico, and I think either of these teams would be a worthy opponent in the Sweet 16 and would be a really, really tough out. I'm gonna take Baylor as much as I like New Mexico. And then Kyle, if you want to get interesting here, because I don't want to pick all chalk, I think Arizona will beat Long Beach State. I think that will actually be a close game. I love the Dan Monson storyline. Let's get interesting, Kyle. Let's get weird. Give me Nevada to beat Arizona. Yep. Give me Nevada to beat Arizona. Some veteran guards that were there last year in Jared Lucas and Keenan Blackshear. Arizona can play erratic. They're going against, I believe that combo of Jared Lucas and Keenan Blackshear has played the most games in D1. They're both fifth-year guys. So give me that experience there to be able to move past Arizona. They're going to defend with some size inside with KJ, with Kwame Himes to be able to defend Ballo. I'm actually going to roll with Nevada here to pull off an upset from an erratic Arizona team that I don't think is going to make the Final Four. anyway. And I think if they had to even see Baylor, they're not gonna make it past the Sweet 16 anyway. Houston A&M, I think could be a close game. I think that's what's going to happen. I'm going to roll with Houston. I think that's going to be a nail-biter game, and it wouldn't even surprise me if A&M pulled that off because A&M and Houston played a close game earlier in the season. Manny Obaseki hardly played for A&M, who's been on a tear lately, and Tyrese Radford didn't even play for the Aggies. And now you have Terrence Armstrong only played 6 minutes in that game, not really a factor, but he's hurt. Joseph Tugler is out for Houston. I think there's a shot. If you're looking on the 8-9 line, Kyle, Texas A&M is going to give Houston a shot, and I think Texas A&M is the best suited 8-9 seed to win one of these matchups. I'm going to roll with Houston, but keep an asterisk on A&M because I do think they're a really good team. Duke, I'm going to take to move on into the Sweet 16 here. I think they'll beat either JMU or Wisconsin, especially if they play Wisconsin. I'll roll with Duke. Kentucky, I think, will definitely make the Sweet 16, whether they have to play NC State, who's scorching hot, or Texas Tech, who's going to slow the game down and play really good defense. I do like Kentucky. And Marquette will be interesting because historically, you look at these first 4 games, usually you have somebody win from the first 4, can get in the first round and win. And with Florida losing handlock, then I do think that's a concern. But I'm going to roll with Florida to at least advance, and then I'll take Marquette to move on. Purdue will move past either Utah State or TCU. Gonzaga, I think, will end up beating Samford. And as you know, either for a bit of a wishy-washy season, I do think Kansas will get there. Let's get weird. I'm going to take Oregon as well. I think the storylines there are pretty good, and I think N'Faly Dante can definitely get the best of Kalkbrenner and give him a headache inside for that game. Now it's going to be hard if you're going to zone up a team that's as good shooting as Creighton is. But for a team like Creighton that's not that deep and a center that can can be very physical and can really match Kalkbrenner inside, I think Oregon can definitely make a run of the Sweet 16 here. Texas, I think, will beat Colorado State. That's going to be a closer game than people think. I have that one circled as well. Can be a damn good game. Yeah. But I'm going to take Tennessee to beat either of those teams as well. Move on to the Sweet 16.
All right, Coach.
All right. I really like a lot of your picks. I disagree with some others. So I'm going to do mine real quick, then we'll get into Elite 8, Final Four, and National Champion. We only have a few minutes left here, so definitely want to make sure we're up by 9. So here's what I got. I got UConn beating FAU, but Cope, I will say, I know you were saying A&M might be that 8-9 game that could go the other way. I think FAU, if they win, they can give UConn a little bit of run for their money. There's a team that is experienced from last year. The one thing that could be a reason why UConn goes down is a team that gets really hot from 3. I think FAU has the potential to do that. I think they have a really good offense. Vlad might get some foul trouble down low because Klingon is a lot to handle. But the same could be said about Klingon. If Klingon gets some foul trouble, that bench gets a little bit thinner. You never know what can happen. So got them. All your points you echoed about Auburn and San Diego State, I agree with. I'm taking Auburn. I picked BYU, and I picked Morehead State. So the opposite of what you did. I'm going to take BYU to beat Morehead State. And I do want to talk about this real quick. I don't want to take too much time, but the last few years there's been one matchup that I really stress over, and I think I can kick myself on. A couple years ago, or I think it was 2021, it was Loyola Chicago and Illinois. I was very stressing on that matchup. I ended up going with Illinois. I was wrong. I picked Illinois to win the championship that year. I was wrong. Last year, it was San Diego State and Alabama. I saw the potential for that to be an upset. I didn't pull the trigger. I picked Alabama. Obviously, that's not what happened. So I think this year, it's Drake and Iowa State. I think Drake and Iowa State match up very well against each other. That game's going to be in Omaha. Both those fan bases are going to show off for that one. I really wanted to pick Drake. Couldn't bring myself to do it. I am going to pick the Cyclones in this one. I've been high on the Cyclones for a while. I think I might regret that pick. But I'm going with it. But I also had a couple other similar situations later in the bracket that I did end up learning from my mistakes from. We'll see, but at least going with my gut. So I went Iowa State there. Going to go UNC over Michigan State. Going to go St. Mary's over Alabama. Same thing you said, when a really fast-paced team that's great on offense plays a slower-paced team that's really good on defense. I'm going to go with the defensive team, the slow-paced team. And St. Mary's is also arguably the best rebounding team in the country. They're phenomenal there. Gonna go New Mexico over Baylor. I know we talked about it in the full court press a little bit. I think that matchup bodes really, really well for them. I think New Mexico's turnover margin will definitely be a lot better than Baylor's, and I think both those offenses match up well against each other. So I'm going to go with New Mexico there. And then I have Arizona and Nevada as well. I'm going to go with Arizona, though. I just think the firepower they have is too much. I think it's going to be a great game, but I think Arizona. Going to go Houston over A&M, Duke over JMU, Kentucky over NC State, and then Marquette over Colorado, though I think that is going to be also a very, very good matchup, but I'm going to go with Marquette there. Got Purdue over TCU. Keep an eye on the Horned Frogs, though. Jameer Nelson, former Delaware transfer. That could also be another 8-9 game that could potentially go the other way. Got Gonzaga over Samford. Got Creighton over Oregon. And Tennessee over Texas, but could also be a good one. And Cope, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to name my Elite Eight Final Four picks real quick. I'm going to let you name your Elite Eight and Final Four picks real quick, and then we'll pick our champions to wrap up the show here. This is the one, Cope. I got one for you. You're not going to agree with it. I've talked about it. I've debated it. This is probably my most stressful play. I picked Auburn over UConn. I might regret it. But Auburn is probably arguably the most underseeded team here. I think they're like a top 5 team in the country, at least metrically. They haven't had maybe as great success in the regular season as the metrics would say, but I think they're a really, really good team. I think they match up really well with UConn, and if they can hit their shots, that's going to be the one thing that gets them out of this game. That and foul trouble, like I mentioned with King and Klingen. They have an All-American in Broome. I like that matchup a lot for them. I have Iowa State over BYU. And as much as I like Iowa State, fun fact for all you bracket heads out there, a team that is unranked in the preseason that finished in the top 2 seed lines has never made the Final Four. I'm going to stick with that trend here. That applies to Iowa State and Iowa State only in this tournament, so I'm going to go Auburn. I've got UNC over St. Mary's. I've got New Mexico over Arizona. Same thing, turnover margin, a little bit of an issue for Arizona. And they also do let up a decent amount of threes. I think New Mexico's going to capitalize there. Though I do have North Carolina, like I mentioned earlier, advancing to the Final Four. The other bracket, Houston and Duke was a debate for me, but I did end up going with Houston. That defense is just relentless, and I don't know if those guards will be able to handle it on Duke. And the same thing goes for Kentucky, who I think will beat Marquette. I think that firepower is too good, but I'm ultimately going to pick Houston to go to the Final Four in that region. And then I got Gonzaga upsetting Purdue. Their offensive firepower is going to be, I think, too much to handle for Purdue. I've got Tennessee over Creighton in a tough one. And Rick Barnes is going to exercise some demons. I've got the Volunteers going to the Final Four. Dalton Connect is the real deal. That defense is really good, and I know they lost their first conference tournament game, but that team is Final Four worthy. Cope, quickly, who do you got?
All right, so I'm not even really going to go Sweet 16 here. I'm just going to give you Elite 8 Final Four. So I have Marquette and I have Houston. And it's tough, Kyle. I think I'm going to roll Marquette here in the South to end up making, because their experience like last year hurt losing the second round to Michigan State. I'm going to roll with Marquette here to actually sneak by Houston with some more offense. In the Midwest, I'm going to roll with Tennessee. I think it's going to be Purdue. It's going to come down to Purdue, and it's going to come down to Tennessee. I like Tennessee, even if they had to play Creighton. Like I really like Tennessee at the bottom here to at least make the Elite Eight, and I think they're going to beat Purdue. And it's really, I like that both these teams are in the same bracket because one of them has to win and one of them has to get to the Final Four. Like one of them is going to, if this happens, they get to the Elite Eight, one of them is going to finally get over the mountaintop with them. So I'm going to go Marquette and Tennessee on the South and the Midwest. I'm going to go with UConn in the East. I'm going to take them to beat Iowa State. Although it might come down to Illinois and Iowa State, I'd rather take the team with all defense than the team with all offense. And plus, like, Brad Underwood had a great history in the tournament at Illinois. So I'm going to roll with Iowa State here. I think UConn's going to beat them. Remember here, Kyle, Auburn smokes teams at Neville Arena. They're going to be playing road games if they have to play UConn here. So I'm going to roll with them as well. And then in the West, it's going to come down to Baylor. It's going to come out of North Carolina for me. And I'm going to roll with Baylor. I'm trying not to pick one seeds. I'm trying not to go with chalk because that doesn't happen.
No.
So
not often.
UConn, Baylor, Marquette, Tennessee, UConn versus Tennessee in the final. UConn will go back-to-back. This team is that good. Danny Hurley said a couple years ago after a Villanova game, he said, get us now because we're coming. He meant it. They are coming. Their back is a blue blood. Their back is a huge problem and one of the best programs, if not the best in this entire sport. They're going to go back-to-back. He's going to show you why.
They are here, and they are a scary team, though I did pick Auburn and beat them. Like I said, Auburn I have in the Final Four facing up against North Carolina. Another matchup I really like for Auburn, I think that offense is going to be able to create a little bit against UNC, and the Baycott-Brew matchup is going to be really interesting. Davis going against Auburn's guard is going to be really interesting. But Auburn's defense is also really, really good. So I'm going to go Auburn there, and then Houston against Tennessee, another matchup of two great defenses. Problem with Tennessee is they have one great scorer, and the rest they kind of have to fill in the gaps. I think Houston will be able to defend those gaps, and I don't think Dalton Knecht will be enough to beat Houston. So I'm going to go with Houston, and then I'm going to roll with Houston to win the national title. I think they've been arguably the best team in college basketball all year. The last month or so, UConn's really shown that. Top to bottom, I think they're the best, and they have probably the least amount of flaws. But I think Houston, when they flip a switch, they are better than UConn, and they're the best team in the country. I think they're going to show that, and I think they will be lifting the trophy down in Phoenix on April 8th as your national champion. Cope, it has been an absolute pleasure breaking down this bracket with you on Brackets Eve. Any final thoughts before we take a bow on the regular season and the conference tournament season, and we get into officially March Madness?
Try and get some sleep tonight. You're going to be staying up watching a whole lot of basketball the next couple of days. So, it's best time of the year. Can't wait. Pleasure to break it down with you. Let's get those brackets finalized, get them in by tomorrow, and let's watch some hoops. Best couple of days of the year coming up.
Oh, yeah. And listen, I'm not worried about sleep because we're sleeping in May. I'll worry about that later. Don't you worry. So, listen, thank you all very, very much for tuning in. We very much appreciate you kicking it with us tonight, going over these brackets. It's our favorite time of year. So, very happy to share that with you. If you want more college basketball content, and specifically college basketball content in the city of Philadelphia in the Big Five, make sure you like and subscribe to the Big Five Pod YouTube. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Big Five Pod. And of course, for our podcasts, we have an audio-only version on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure you listen to that as well. And listen, first live show in the books. For Jake Copestick, I am Kyle Morello. We will see you all on the other side of March.